G'day, guys. I'm DMAC from NBA Fantasy Bible, and along with me is, of course, Kayla Fontaine. We are Between Two Hoops. G'day, Kayla. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing really well. It's been a huge week in the NBA as per normal, and today we've gone live as well, and we've got a special guest with us. It's Papi Roi from NBA Fantasy PH. NBA Papi, how are you?
Hey everyone, hey Dimak, hey Kayla. Yeah, doing
Hey.
great. It's been a while.
It's been a long time. It's been, been hectic. I know personal lives sometimes get in the way of fantasy hoops, but hey, we're
Mhm.
on together, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, welcome
Now,
to the show. It's great to have you.
welcome to the absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
let
We're
me
hoping
be
to
your
get
let me be your
some,
water boy. The
yeah, in
water boy
between
in
two
between two
hoops.
hoops.
Yes, absolutely. Now we're hoping to get some guys with their questions come on board. So those that are watching right now, please send us through some questions. Hopefully we'll be able to answer those online. But we've also got some other discussion points that we want to go through as well. But shall we get into it, guys?
Let's do it.
All right. Just first thing, we're going through some news. So Joel Embiid, obviously, we've heard about the meniscus issue. It's a meniscus injury. It's not yet been confirmed as a tear. There was some reports that it was a tear, which would be probably season over for Embiid. So we are waiting an update, and hopefully we do get that shortly. Comments around this, guys?
I think the main thing just to note here is add Paul Reed. That is the number one thing. And we even talked about Mo Bamba too, but he's more of a deeper league option, maybe like 16 teams. But Paul Reed, if he's available, pick him up. He's a great long term ad.
Absolutely. And Papi, I know you're quite the expert when it comes to deeper leagues. Any other names that we should be thinking of?
Well, to be honest, one target of mine after this very bad news for Joel Embiid. Speaking from someone who have three leagues with Joel Embiid, so I'm actually targeting a very silent DeAnthony Melton. So I think, given that he's injured, among all of the players that is kind of like anchored with Joel Embiid being injured, he is a little bit low key there. That already injured, I haven't played yet, and maybe people forget about him. So I would buy low on the Anthony Melton just in case he's floating in your FAs, and I would definitely add him.
Yeah, I think so. I think he should be due back soon, but he should be rostered, and we know how good he can be with that extra usage. He'll start once he does return from injury, and I guess we saw it last night. Was Tyrese Maxey unbelievable 51-point game, superstar. I'm thinking if he's going to be the main usage guy, he's probably a first round value for the rest of the season, depending on when or if Embiid does return.
Yeah, and
What
he's
do you think
definitely a
of?
sell high opportunity there too, if you wanted to sell on him.
Yeah, or you could just write it out as well. But it
Mhm.
does depend on the timeline that we do get. So it's a little bit of a waiting game. But like you said, Kayla, from the outset, Paul Reed's a must add. He has been the most added player in the last 24 hours as well. And that's to no surprise to anyone. But yeah, let's wait and see what this MB does and the news, because it does have implications in terms of obviously MVP. I would say he's out of the running there.
Yep.
We've seen him pretty much have his odds frozen, if not just completely removed from the leaderboard, but also implications in terms of dynasty fantasy leagues as well. And Papio, do you have him in a dynasty league?
I have two. Actually, I have two dynasty leagues. Good point here, because usually in dynasty and even in a regular keeper league, this is a good opportunity to buy low on Joel Embiid, especially if the one who is holding him is actually in contention to win now. So then I'm pretty sure you can actually propose a good trade there. Another thing is in so the usual thought process here. Hey, I have to add Paul Reed or Kelly Oubre is definitely gonna get some usage there and playing time, right? But for me, depending on the scenario, I kind of like posted this a couple of days ago. If you actually have Paul Reed and then you analyze your team, maybe you needed a guard stats over a big man stats. This is also an opportunity for you to really come up with a trade around Paul Reed, because we're kind of like really leaning that Joel Embiid at most will miss time. So being optimistic, maybe he's gonna there's no what I call this surgery needed, and then he's gonna come back after a couple of weeks. But nonetheless, Paul Reed will definitely play, right? So with that said, I would also be creative in packaging Paul Reed while he's hot, while he hasn't played a lot yet. Because as good as Paul Reed is, there will be days or there will be games that for some reason Marcus Morris will start and play and play over Paul Reed, right? So with that said, I love playing on gray area. So try to package Paul Reed and get more out of him.
It's a great point, and we saw that Paul Reed had a decent game last night, but he didn't close. He didn't play the last few minutes as well, and I don't know if that's indicative of perhaps the style of play. They wanted to go a little bit smaller, but and of course, leading up to NBA trade deadline as well, you hear these rumors around how if Embiid is out for the longer term, perhaps they're going to look for a better center, maybe an upgrade over Paul Reed. But it's something to keep in mind, I guess, to your point, Roy, play off that hype as well. So Paul Reed's he came into the season with a lot of hype. He failed to deliver. He just didn't get the opportunity. But now maybe this is his moment. But yeah, let's wait and see if there is a status update overnight. Next point there, I've got LaMelo Ball, and there is a question in our mailbag segment later on in regards to LaMelo Ball and just his ankles. A lot of the questions I'm getting hit up around is just whether or not you would trade him, and you're downgrading in terms of overall value, but perhaps it's better in terms of games played. We just know the shenanigans that the Hornets give us in terms of not just reporting of injuries, but also just sitting guys out, being really unpredictable, really late withdrawals as well. So perhaps that is an option, and we'll go into some more detail in terms of specific trade questions. But is that something that you guys would consider? Perhaps looking for a guy ranged around the 40 or 50 mark, but so in terms of overall value, that's a downgrade. But in terms of healthy games and going into playoff games as well in fantasy leagues, is that something you would consider, Kayla?
Yeah, personally, I would, just because at this point, I'd rather have someone who will play those games compared to him, and we don't know what's going to happen with that ankle. Will he be rested more often? They're obviously out of playoff contention, so it really just worsens the whole situation. Like you mentioned before, you're going to get less than what you want for him, but at this point, it's kind of forcing your hand.
Yeah, I think so. Roy, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, totally agree. Also, I would like to add here that Charlotte Hornets, in most of our leagues, if you check your playoff schedule, I'm pretty sure around that area, you'll get a 2 game week for the Charlotte
Mm.
Hornets. So
Right.
that's another bummer for LaMelo Ball owners. Another thing is, if you'll ask me, hey, since you're encouraging us to trade away my Lamelo, who are the players that we suggest for you to target? Me personally, I'm looking at Darius Garland. Darius Garland has low value as of the moment. Just came back out of the injury, but he haven't really showed us the expected value that we're hoping him this season. Maybe it's coming, right? So at
Yeah,
least the gap between you losing a Lamelo Ball isn't that big. So looking at Darius Garland for Lamelo Ball.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Now we've got a question here, a live question. It is related to his Charlotte Hornets teammate. Um, So, do we sell high on Miles Bridges? He's on a tear lately, but the 2 games for week 21, as you were alluding to, Papi, could be a problem for me, especially majority of my core players have 3 games only. So, yeah, further to your point, Roy, you want to take this?
Yeah, actually is on my list to sell high. Aside from that, take note that this could be the best role and position for Miles Bridges. And if only Mark Williams, Lamelo Ball, and B Miller are the safe Hornets not to be traded, then I would assume even though Miles Bridges will play rest of the season, if he gets traded, his value is definitely gonna dip, right? So looking at it, I guess it's safe to say to really sell high on Miles Bridges.
Ella, do you have any
Yeah,
thoughts on that?
I would say the same. Sell high while you can. Miles Bridges is on one of my teams, and personally, I prefer to keep him, but it also depends on your roster and what your overall game plan is for the playoffs, too. So I think it's a really good opportunity to sell high and see what you can get back.
Yeah. And for the season, he's actually a top 40 player in 9 cat. So he's doing unbelievably well. I remember just before the season, we talked about picking him up or perhaps even stashing him. And it was a little bit unpopular at the time, but he sort of delivered. And we knew he was a great player and
Mm.
would deliver on a top 60 type of season. Obviously, a bad person, but yeah, in terms of fantasy, fantastic value there. So I do think he's a sell high. There has been talk of him perhaps even going to the Sun. So in that situation, yeah, his value will drop tremendously. So I do think it is a sell high. But yeah, it really depends again on what you can get for him. Don't sell him too cheaply. If you can get something that's perhaps a top 40, top 50, and really take advantage of just the hot streak that he's had at the moment. But yeah, great question there. Moving on to some other news. Now, we just had the rosters come out, the reserves in terms of the All-Stars have been released. Any thoughts on this, guys? There were a few interesting omissions and some interesting ads as well. Any thoughts
Where's
on
Scotty
this?
Barnes?
Wow, your boy Scotty Barnes. Yeah, he's had a great season for your boys, but yeah, hasn't been recognised.
Yeah,
Anything
very
else?
surprising. Even Sabonis too. I don't understand. There's a lot of frustration over it too.
Yeah, there has been a lot of talk of Sabonis perhaps coming in for the West and maybe taking the place of someone like a Karl Anthony Towns.
Mhm.
But yeah, some contention around Towns, some talk of even maybe a Gobert playing over
Yep.
Towns. But, I think you sometimes look at the more offensive player and someone who's a little bit flashier in terms of the fan vote as well. So it's not an egregious omission to not have someone like Sabonis, but yeah, it's a tough one. He has looked tremendous this season. Roy, any thoughts on this?
Well, I'm repping San Antonio. I'm really I was really expecting Wemby appearance in the All Star. Well, he's gonna
Mhm.
play in the rookie match, but I think he was an All Star. I think what he brings is going to be great not only for my team but also for the whole NBA, but also for the event. So I don't know. I mean, year and year again, it's hard to understand how they choose this stuff, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and I know another one was Trey Young. That was
Mhm.
somewhat of a
Surprising.
surprise, but yeah, a little bit surprising in a lot of cases put forward, and some people saying that he's been, I guess, blackballed, if you might want to put it as well, from the All Star selection. But I don't think so. I think it's a solid roster. Banquero, I think he's had a really solid season, but some have saying maybe he came a little bit early. But even starters as well. You've got Dame Lillard over someone like Jalen Brunson. A lot of
That makes no sense to
contention
me.
around that one as well. I think Jalen Brunson's had a tremendous season. Lillard's really dropped off. But yeah, no huge surprises, to be honest. Now, going to a question here. We've got one from Eric. I want to drop a question. Is Struce droppable? Um, we don't have
Mm,
any details in terms of category or points league, but we could look at both. We've got experts in both fields here. So, Kayla, I'll start with you. From a points league perspective, do you think Max Struce is droppable? Let's say from a 12-team perspective.
Yeah, from a 12 team, I would say if there's someone better that's available on the waivers, I would drop him. I believe I had him in one of my 12 team points leagues, and I dropped him pretty recently, and I haven't looked back. I picked up someone better. I think it was Andrew Wiggins actually in his absence. So
Andrew
I've been
Wiggins,
thriving.
your
I know.
boy, Andrew.
And this is the league where my fantasy name is Getting Wiggy with It.
Yeah,
So
that's the
it's
one.
back. It's
That's the
back.
one.
It's
You had to
awesome.
keep the name, so you
I
had to get him
had
back, and he
to.
has been a lot better recently. But
Yeah,
yeah,
he's been great.
interesting. So you think Struce is droppable from a points league
I think
perspective?
he is, but at the same time, though, is I would say if you want to hold for a bit, if there's no one better, I would do so too, just because we still have key players who are returning from injuries. They have those minutes restrictions, so he could still see a little bit more usage for a while.
And
Oh,
Enrique
it is
has
12
actually
team
confirmed
points.
it is a 12-team points league as well. So yeah, perfect
Yeah.
response. But I guess Roy, from a category league perspective, do you think he's a hold, Max Struce?
For me, it's not a must hold in a sense that,
Mhm.
um, well, you have to consider if you're asking that he's probably droppable in your team, it means he's in the bottom of your roster, right? Maybe the worst two or worst three. If that's the case, then make it a streaming slot instead, because we're about to enter the trade deadline date. So I'm pretty sure something's gonna come up. At least now you are aware and you've realized that, hey, if something comes up, I'm gonna drop screws over who is available and who is the hot player there.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, let's move forward with this one. Before we get into the trade deadline talk, there's been another question here as well from Joel or Joel. What's the best I could get if I try to trade LeBron? 14 team, 9 cat, Papi. Now, it's pretty generic sort of question, but maybe we're looking at a range of value or some names you might want to throw out.
Yeah. So these questions are really hard to answer given the lack of context. But currently, LeBron James is ranked 25 in the Basketball Monster player ranking. So around LeBron James, you can see here uh, 5 ranks up, starting there, you have Damian Lillard, Chet Holmgren, or Scotty Barnes. So those are options. You can actually trade for Curry if you think, uh, if you believe that Curry and the JSW will definitely get some resurgence after the All Star break, right? So that's a good option. On the bottom, that are kind of like lagging, you have there Jimmy Butler, Trey Young, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. I could actually see a path for those three to still play well, over or better, or play better than LeBron James. So Trey Young, why? So we don't know who's gonna be get traded. Maybe he gets back to the old my team mode for Trey Young. So get a lot of snipes there. So that's an option. Jimmy Butler. Let's see if this is still a year wherein Jimmy Butler surprises us. Second half of the season, he's him, right? So there's a lot of contention here. So but my last point here, brother, is you have to really analyze your team, right? So sometimes you just don't need to look at players. You have to also look at your team construction, and then you have to look forward to the upcoming matches, especially if you're already contending for the playoffs. So hey, if the top 5 teams over me has big lineup, how do I fare with them? So if I'm trading LeBron James, then now you have the direction, or you have an idea on who you need to get just to make you more competitive over those teams.
Yeah, great answer. It does come down, when it is a category league, it does come down to team build, and it's very important that you do analyze your opponents as well. If you're in a good spot in terms of playoff contention and you think you may actually get there, you do need to start looking at your opponents as well and looking at their weaknesses and their strengths. But LeBron, he's playing well. Is it sustainable? Perhaps, but also it may come down to whether or not the Lakers are in contention. If they're going to fall away, perhaps some of those rest days come back. But if they're in contention, they're playing okay. They are playing okay. Perhaps he does play more of those back to backs, less rest days, and he's had a really solid season. He's been surprising. AD as well. Not that many games off, to be honest. So even if you can't trade him away, I think you just roll with it. He is having a very solid season, and who knows, when it is in the lead up to the playoffs and they are fighting, he may actually win you a league down the stretch. But yeah, I would look to get someone like a Trey, like you said, perhaps his running mate and DeJounte Murray does get traded away, and that just opens up more assist opportunities, more usage as well. So a lot to play out there, but yeah, some good names that you dropped there. Now, I've got a slide here around NBA trade deadline, February 8th. So we'll all be thinking about it, but some of these things are stash worthy, and we need to start thinking about some of those types of players. And Kayla, I'm going to get you in the limelight here. You wrote an article for The Last Word on Sports just the other day around this very subject. Can you enlighten us with some nice potential stashes?
Yeah, for sure. So just note though that these aren't necessarily must add players. It's more just players to consider if you have that extra roster spot. You want to take a chance, make a stash, and kind of see what happens. But one of the top names on those lists for me is Okongwu. What do you guys think about that? Because we all know that the only players on the Hawks that are pretty much untouchable, Jalen Johnson, Trey Young. And a lot of teams have already been drawing interest for Clint Capella. So if he's traded, that would likely open up a starting role for Okongwu. And a lot of people are a little bit kind of hesitant on him, though. What do you guys think?
Uh,
Roy, I know what your thoughts are, probably quite similar to mine, but go on.
Yeah, well, first of all, shout out to Eric, brother. I know this is one of the topics that you love to answer. Is the Onyeka Congo guy. But for me, just want to add there that it was a bummer that the Houston Rockets got Aquaman earlier, because Clint Capella has been really tied to the Rockets for quite some time. So if they eventually got Aquaman, who people are saying, people from Memphis is saying, hey, it's fine, get Aquaman because he's gonna retire soon. So I don't know if those are rumors, but if the Memphis people has some information that we don't know. But nonetheless, it means they got some good backup center for at least the upcoming years, right? So now the question here is who which team is gonna fit Clint Capella in terms of prioritizing uh this trade deadline to get him, right? So I can't really find several teams because I was thinking of the Los Angeles Clippers, but they already did some move, right? So that's something that kind of like really holds me back if this is the year that Clint Capella gets traded. But like what Kayla mentioned, me personally, I'm also hoping. I think it's going to be great for Onyeka Okongwu, but I'm kind of like really holding my hopes here.
Yeah, I think there is more value for Okongwu in category leagues as opposed to points leagues. So it's someone he's probably on rosters in most leagues anyway, in most 12-team leagues for categories. Not so much for points, less value there. But if Capella does get moved, yeah, absolutely need to have him on your roster in a points league as well. But there was a lot of talk, even preseason, around Capella going to the Mavericks, but
Mhm.
Lively's looked fantastic. I think he works nicely with Kyrie and particularly with Luca. So I don't even know if they're going to make that sort of trade unless they just play Capella as a backup to Lively, a bit of a mentor, just some insurance, I guess. But that's looking less likely as we continue on with Lively and looking really nice. But yeah, look, I still think he's a good stash, and we are really close to the deadline. So why not have him? He's not clogging up your roster, particularly in the category league. He's contributing in a way. He's probably borderline in terms of points, but I think he's a great stash. Any others, Kayla?
Yeah, Asar Thompson is another one. Just because this Pistons team is so unpredictable, Bogdanovich could be traded possibly. I keep hearing rumors about it, but they're so unexpected that I don't really know what's going to happen. But I still think Asar Thompson. We saw those flashes of potential early on in the season, and I think that the Pistons should really capitalize off of that and continue to develop him this season. What do you
I
guys
agree.
think? Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, it's looking like he's playing some more. Bogdanovich is highly sought after. He just is a great floor spacer. I think a lot of the contenders are looking for someone like him as well. He's obviously been linked with someone like the Lakers. I think he has been for quite some time, and the Lakers are linked to pretty much everyone that could be up for trade as well. But I think it's a nice stash. We saw what Assad did earlier in the season. We know that he's got that upside. It's just getting the opportunity, getting the minutes,
Mhm.
and getting the playing time. That's the key for him. So I think that's another solid stash. Roy, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to Detroit, I'm always thinking, they've been playing the likes of Alec Burks, they've been playing the likes of Kevin Knox, right? If that doesn't equate to a good reason why, like for example, to be traded in the future, then I don't know how do we analyze the Detroit Pistons. So yeah, I'm Team Asar here. I've picked several Asars in several of my leagues. I've picked some, but I let Kayla share those his list of players as well. But there are good rookies actually that are great stashes, and Asar is
Yeah,
one of them.
yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Kayla.
Yeah, some other more stashes I got too though. Jabari Walker and Scoot
Mm.
Henderson.
Mm.
Now, Scoot didn't exactly have the start to the season that we expected, but he started to pick up a little bit over the past few weeks. And there's two key players who the Blazers are trying to look to trade at the deadline, and that's Jeremy Grant and Malcolm Brogdon. And in that case, that just opens up more minutes for Jabari Walker and Scoot. What do you guys think?
Completely agree. Yeah, I think they're good stashes as well. Scoots looked inconsistent, but he has looked better
Mhm.
in the last few games as well. So I think he's probably rostered in most spots. But if he's not, I think he's a great stash, as you said. Jeremy Grant, high usage player, a lot of rumors around him leaving. And as you said, it does open up a lot of opportunity for those rookies like Scoot. Even more playing time for Ant Simons as well. So he has really dropped off in recent times, Ant Simons. So he was my boy to start with. Looked great. He was a top 50 guy for quite some time in category leagues, but he's sort of dwindled away. And I guess that's because of someone like a Brogdon playing more than we probably expected. But I like that one. That's a good stash. Any others?
Yeah, so my last two would be Koulibaly and Keontae
Mm,
George. I
yep.
Those are two teams that they have to do something at the deadline. Like it's almost a given. Their seasons have been a dumpster fire, to put it nicely.
Hmm.
But I could see a lot of moves happening there, and I think it would open up a lot of minutes for those rookies too, because they're also looking to develop these players as they look to rebuild, which is a big thing.
Yeah, 100% agree. Roy?
Yeah, Kayla totally nailed it. Actually, in the past, starting last week, I've been picking a lot of Bilal Koulibaly. Why?
Mhm.
Because he's already contributing something, right? So
Hmm.
that's a good indicator for a good stash. Well, I did that with B Miller a couple of weeks ago because he's already contributing currently, but could contribute more. Thing is, with B Miller, with Scoot Henderson, and even Bilal, take note that yes, stats will be there, but in points league, totally fine. In category leagues, be wary of the field goal percentages and the turnovers and whatnot because these are young guys, right? They'll eventually get a lot of usage, hopefully, but with great usage comes great responsibility to shoot better. So maybe they're a little bit younger or premature on that side. So don't get surprised that there will be games or there will be weeks that they aren't really helping you out well, especially in the field
Mhm.
goal percentage category. But aside from the rooks, Kayla, I was surprised you didn't mention your guy. I think Andrew Wiggins need to be also included here.
Mhm.
A little bit. I was hesitant, but I was thinking, hey, if it, GSW really need to make a move. I
Mhm.
can't. It's hard for me to really comprehend how do they move forward without making a move. And then out of the players that they have now, I think Andrew Wiggins is possibly one of the four uh, front players that they could actually trade away. Maybe Draymond Green, but Draymond Green is really helping them out with a lot of stuff, right? So maybe it's Andrew Wiggins. So if Andrew Wiggins gets traded, who knows? What if they Andrew Wiggins get traded to a place wherein he is more comfortable playing since as of the moment the only logical thing uh that makes us believe that Andrew Wiggins isn't playing better is because of some out of the court issues that he had last year, right? So if that's the case, maybe change helps him out. So I think it's a good to monitor. Andrew Wiggins is also playing better now, so adding him is also kind of like stashing him as well. And then lastly, I'm also gonna look at the Brooklyn Nets because there were rumors around Spencer Dinwiddie and Nick Claxton. So if that's the case, I'm gonna look at players. Well, Ben Simmons is out, always out, Uncle Ben. So I'm gonna look at the likes of Dennis Smith Jr. in deeper leagues, and then Darren Sharp as well.
Mhm. Yeah, for
I like that
Wiggins, I
one.
agree with you there. The
Yeah.
thing is though, like at first I was very hesitant just because I'm still concerned about just how long he can maintain that production, especially after this underwhelming season that he had. I think he is definitely an ad right now. But like you said, it's more of a monitor situation too. And then even with Brooklyn, I was looking at Dennis Smith Jr. actually, and I noticed a lot of other analysts were mentioning him. But the only thing that kind of held me back from including him on the list is that the Nets have been linked to D'Angelo Russell. So I just figured that if they did bring him back, they would likely ship off Spencer Dinwiddie. But still, I was just kind of a little concerned about how Smith's usage would be in his production. But I think he still could be like a deeper ad or stash.
I love it. I've got a general question for you guys. I guess if you're battling for a playoff berth in your fantasy league, are you looking to stash someone who may not be contributing 12 team numbers at the moment? I guess it's only a few days away, yes. But
Hmm.
if you're battling for a week's win, are you still looking to stash? Or are you thinking, I just need to keep streaming? And then, look, if I miss out on a guy, so be it. At least I've given my all for this week as well. What do you think?
That's tough. But for me, especially like now that we're so close to the trade deadline and the playoffs, I'm thinking more long term. Especially if I'm already locked into that playoff spot, it's for me. I would stash and not. Well, I guess hope for the best.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just quickly put up a question here from Eric again. I have DeJounte, so I'm nervous to see what happens. We've got DeJounte here pictured. Now, there's been some discussions around rookie Kobe Buffkin. I don't know if you've heard too much
Mhm.
of him, and he's been smashing it in the G League at the moment, but there's talk that he can come in and play alongside a Trey Young, and look really impressive. Have you seen much of Buffkin?
I haven't really watched his game as much. I've heard a little bit about him, and he's also another stat that a lot of analysts have talked about. I didn't include him as well just because I'm also concerned about who they're gonna bring back in a package for Murray. Like I
Mm,
would assume that they would try to get another backcourt partner, possibly. But I don't think he's necessarily a must roster right now, and we kind of have to see what that return is and then make adjustments as needed. Like no one's gonna go and run and grab Kobe right now. So you
mhm.
could kind of get away with waiting a bit.
Yeah, I think you're right. He's not contributing. He's not playing at the moment. Yes, he's putting out some great numbers in the G League, but yeah, it will definitely hurt your week if you are looking for some of those W's in the lead up to the playoffs. Um, Thank you, guys. Let's move on. Before we get to these mailbag questions, I've just got a couple of live questions here from Lester. Do you guys think there's a shutdown risk on LaMelo? So we sort of touched on that briefly earlier, just with these ongoing ankle issues. Yes, he's missing quite a lot of games. It's not looking great at the moment, but do you think he's a shutdown risk? Roy?
Yeah, sorry, I was having some issues with my mic.
Oh, no,
So,
that's all right. We're just saying LaMelo shutdown risk. Do you think that that's of concern?
yeah, definitely a concern here. We've mentioned as well in the couple of minutes ago we're in the 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 Charlotte Hornets actually has bad weeks, right? So he's definitely a risk. So I'm a gray area guy. So whenever there's a gray area, for me that's the best time to hammer because the moment that it shifts either side, then there's a clear value there. Then you won't actually leverage, right? There's no way to leverage. So as of the moment, there's no indicative statement that hey, we're gonna sit him back to backs or whatnot. Let's hammer and trade away Lamelo Ball.
Yeah.
Get some
Yeah.
value.
Yeah,
Kayla?
agreed. I would try to trade him as well. There is always that shutdown risk. They're not really playing for anything at this point. So the only thing, and we talked about this earlier, is that you're not going to get the best return on him.
Nice. Yeah, shortly we'll get to a specific mailbag question around LaMelo, but hold that thought. I do have another one from Leicester as well. What's your thoughts on Maxi's rest of season value without Embiid? Yeah, we touched on that earlier. I think he's got first round
Sky
value.
high.
Yeah, sky high. Yeah, I think he's going to look tremendous. 51-point game overnight as well. Just tremendous, tremendous young player and all-star as well.
Yeah, his other stats were down. Like I see you said, his assists were pretty low. I think he only had a couple. I don't think that's going to be the case for every other game. He kind of exploded, but he'll still give you those assist numbers.
Yeah. All right, we've got a mailbag question here on Twitter. Hey man, Chet and Bilal, Butler and Grant, which side are you on? So I'm going to assume it is a category league. So Chet, so he's a second rounder, and Koulibaly that you mentioned earlier, Kayla, for Butler and Jeremy Grant. Again, another potential shutdown risk if he stays in Portland with Jeremy. Which side are you taking?
You
Kayla?
said this is categories?
Let's go categories first,
Okay.
and then maybe we can go points. Actually, Kayla, from a points league perspective, which
Mhm.
side would you take?
I would probably take Chet. Butler, like we said, he has that ability to kind of light up in the second half of the season, but I don't want to bank on that, especially with how underwhelming he's been this year. And even Jeremy Grant too. He's probably going to get traded, and I think that could hurt his value potentially. And Bilal is one of my stashes. I think he has great potential for the rest of the season, and he could even probably move into a consistent starting role. And Chet, as we know, he's been a buy low opportunity over the past few weeks, but I don't think that's going to necessarily stay the same for the rest of the season. So I would stick with Chet and Bilal.
Nice. Roy, what do you think from a category perspective?
Personally, I'll also go with Shet and Bilal. Almost the same thoughts like Kayla, but if you want to go safe, it's also arguable to get Butler and Grant. And
Mhm.
aside from the reason why Kayla isn't really fond of Jeremy Grant, you have to also look at what if he is not rated, and then he's gonna sit
Mm,
for sure for Portland. So
yeah.
that's gonna really hurt him. And then there's also a big reason why Terry Rozier was acquired by the Miami Heat. What if he was acquired because we don't know that Jimmy Butler is really, really not the Jimmy Butler we all know. Maybe what if this is the year that he slows down. So
Yeah.
again, given of the name value, maybe for me Butler and Grant could be the safer just because of we have historical data. already in check, while Chet and Bilal gives us upside. So what kind of GM are you? You're just picking your own poison, I guess.
Yeah, and as you guys mentioned, we've got another variable, I guess, with trade deadline coming up. So there are things that you need to consider, but sometimes we maybe think too hard about trade deadline, just assume that they may be moving or maybe shut down. So there's a lot of intricacies. It makes it very interesting, but I guess that's the beauty of fantasy as well. Moving to the next one from Rod. This is the specific one I was talking about. LaMelo for
Mhm.
Tyus Jones. Ankle risk with LaMelo, as we've discussed. Kayla, we'll start with you from a points league perspective. Which side are you taking?
I wouldn't go with that. I would rather have LaMelo, and I think you can get someone better than Jones, especially because Jones is also subject to trade rumors too. We
Hmm.
don't really know
Hmm.
what's going to happen with that team, but yeah, I think you can get someone a little bit better than him.
Yeah, good call. Roy from a category league.
Yeah, same thing. You have to ask more. And then also, I think I've mentioned this in one of our episodes, DMAC. I like Tyus Jones, to be honest. But for me, he is a very, very good backup point guard. So
Hmm.
he's currently running the show. If he gets traded, there's going to be a backup point guard again, most likely. So you have to also consider that. This could be a question of desperation, I guess. But again, we still have time. If you own Lamelo, we still have time. Try to get some more.
Yeah. Nice segue to the live question from Dent Leonardo. So trade targets for Tyus Jones. Again, difficult. We don't know the context,
Mhm.
the format of the league. But I guess from a category league perspective, Roy, I don't know if you've got it on hand, but Tyus Jones, he's easily a top 50 or top 60 type of player. Um, I don't know if there's anyone around that sort of region from a category perspective that you'd look at, but I guess with the risk of potentially being traded away, as we just mentioned, perhaps it's an opportunity to sell off while you can.
Yeah. I might answer this with a little bit, a moderately long answer. Sometimes, again, you don't need to look at the player per player. So what if you're trading with a GM that doesn't look at the BBM ranking, right? So you it's hard for you to really trade. So that's the beauty of trading. It's very subjective. So if that's the case, my usual route is, hey, let me check. What do I need? What stats, what specific stat do I need? Next is, since I'm a person who don't want to trade with great teams, I don't want to trade with our number one team in the league, right? So I'm gonna look first on the bottom of the league. So on the bottom of the league, usually they are the ones who needs drastic changes.
Hmm.
So they are more willing buyers. So if there are more willing buyers, then check their teams and then pick the most appropriate player that you think is gonna help your team.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, intricacies of category leagues as well. Trade deadline, just all these factors does make it quite difficult. But I guess from a points league perspective, it's a little bit more, I guess, in control. But
Mhm.
would you, Kayla, would you look at perhaps looking at Tyus Jones' average from a points league perspective and maybe backing off and go, look, if I wanted to trade away, would I look at someone who's averaging less than Tyus Jones at the moment with a risk with potentially trading away?
Yeah, I think you have to go just slightly less than what he's averaging right now, just because a lot of people know, or most people should know, that the Wizards are a dumpster fire. They're going to make some trades. He's been subject to rumors. So they know that his value might be impacted by an incoming trade. It's going to hard to sell high on him, I would say. But I would say maybe around that 60 range, somewhere around there, I think is probably the best that you would be able to do.
Nice. Thanks, guys. All right. Next mailbag question we have here. Hey, would you trade Vince Williams? He's doing really well for the Grizzlies, and Kevin Herter for Tim Hardaway Jr. and Paul George. Now, I have answered this on Twitter, but I'd love to get your thoughts on this. It's a
I if I
points
could,
league, by the
yeah,
way.
if it's points, yeah, I would get rid of Herder for sure for
Hmm.
Hardaway and PG3. Yeah, I would do it. I like Vince Williams, but I mean, we all know that the Clippers are going to be contenders this year, so there's not really going to be that much of a risk of Paul George getting shut down unless it's like the last week or two, obviously.
Yep.
And I like Hardaway. I think he's going to be good. The Mavs have been dealing with a lot of injuries too. Yeah, I would take that.
Yeah, I'm with you. Roy, would you agree with that? I know it's points
Yeah,
league, but PG-13, you're getting the best player in that deal.
Mhm.
exactly. So accept the trade, get PG-13, and run away.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's very
Absolutely. And I hope
surprising.
it is
Like that
surprising,
caliber of
but
a player.
Yeah. Maybe again, thoughts going through the other manager's mind around. I don't know. Is he healthy? There's that risk of injury, but I guess
Hmm.
there's
Yeah,
got to be that risk for everyone moving forward.
I would like
Next
to look.
one. Oh,
Yeah,
go on, Roy.
yeah. I was just about to say something about looping back to one of your questions earlier as well. Like, hey, if you're a losing team, how what do you think about stashing? Right. For me, it's
Yeah.
similar to this because apparently people are overthinking stuff, right? When it comes to trading, when it comes to stashing, my suggestion is, you know what? Just get stash a player even though you're losing. Get a Paul George even though you have some hesitation. Why? Because you can flip them.
Hmm.
Like if you stash something, we have it. There's no trades yet, so you people are actually assuming a lot of things. Then you flip them. You get an asset and then you flip them.
Yeah. I like it. I like it. Next question, and this has come up a fair bit, but Miles Turner. I know, Kayla, you've responded to VP, and he's very, very active on Twitter in regards to fantasy basketball. But why is Miles Turner sucking so bad? Is he playing hurt? What can you get back from Miles Turner, Kayla?
Yeah, well, he did have an injury. I don't know if I think he's almost fully healthy now. He's doing better than he was before. But I think the main thing here is just that he's getting used to playing with Siakam in the front court. So that's a big adjustment for him, and that's obviously impacting his fantasy value a bit. Right now, though, it's going to be hard. You're going to have to buy low on him. That's the issue. You're not going to get a fantastic return. Um, I think I told him what you could do is just wait for a bit, see how he kind of starts to adjust, if he starts playing better, and then see what you can get then. I wouldn't necessarily trade him yet.
Yep. So if you've got him, hold him, wait for a big game if you did want to move him. And I guess that's a nice segue to a live question again from Leicester. Do you guys think Miles Turner is a buy low right now? Absolutely.
Mhm.
What range of player would you try to target? Was thinking about Aiton due to the shutdown risk. Thoughts on
Mm,
that?
I would say, well, in a points league, maybe like 50 ish
All right.
around there.
Yep. Roy, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so actually, Kayla nailed it. Again, guys, we're talking about a new team player, which is Pascal Siakam. Halliburton hasn't played with both of them for quite some time since he was out. So there's a lot of moving things internally, and then maybe he's actually not 100% yet. So definitely, you have to really wait. Buy low, yes. Target players. How about J Dub? I
Mm.
love targeting injured players that are good. So if you're eager to get some value, I would say J Dub ranks higher than him, and I think at the end of the rest of the season value, J Dub has more upside over Turner. So yeah.
Oh, I love that one. Yeah, I'd definitely
Mhm.
take J Dub there. And I guess Jalen Smith's been playing a fair bit more, but again, today or last night, we had Miles Turner in foul trouble as well. So that's just another reason why I think you just need to hold if you do have him and a great buy low opportunity. So thank you guys on that one. Moving to the next. Any idea what this means? This is in relation to Joel Embiid. So we
Mhm.
spoke about this at the outset of the episode. We haven't had confirmation on whether or not it is a torn meniscus, but I'm thinking it's going to be a long-term injury. It's likely going to be weeks as opposed to days. They did say that they would at least rule him out until the weekend and then reassess. But yeah, any other thoughts on that? We did discuss it earlier, but any timelines in mind?
Yeah, I think I was reading something that the minimum would be about 4 weeks and the max would be about 8. So somewhere between there. But yeah, like you said, we won't really know anything until after the weekend.
Yep. Anything else to add there, Roy?
I don't know, man. I have several Embiid. I'm still sad. I'm still
Hmm.
I'm still mourning. Why?
Yeah.
Oh, why? Come on, Joel.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've got him in locked on fantasy bowl. It was a ridiculous trade now I think about it, but I guess hindsight's a beautiful thing. But I traded my cat and my Jason Tatum for Embiid. I just wanted to get that ultimate first round value, and now it's bitten me in the butt, but that's okay. You live and learn. We've got a few more live questions here. So we've got KPTV, Scoot, Wemby, Zubac, was Rozier, Drummond, Bam, Jalen Johnson. That's a lot going on here.
Oof.
Scoot, Wemby, Zubats for Rozier, Drummond, Bam. Now, again, there's no context on whether or not it's a category or a points league. He's got another Another question here. Maybe this is clarity. Nope, it's the
Oh, the
same.
same one.
Scoot, Wemby, Zubats for Rozier, Drummond, Bam, Jalen Johnson. Again, look, if it's a category league, it's very difficult. You do have to weigh it up with your team build. From a points perspective, let's have a
Even from
look.
points, it's hard to say. But you know what? One tool that I like to use is on hashtag basketball. You could actually input all your players and see the values that you're going to be losing and returning. With bigger trades like this, that's the best thing that I would recommend. Because even looking here, like I wouldn't want Drummond on my team. But then again, I don't. It depends on the size. Oh, okay, the 16 team. There you go.
Yep,
So
he's
this is a
just clarified
category
for
one.
us. It's a
Yeah.
category. Yeah. So it makes it a little bit clearer, but still a difficult one to answer, particularly with Zubats.
Mhm.
He's still out for quite some time. You've got all healthy players on the other side of the trade. Rozier, Drummond, Bam, Jalen Johnson. We don't know what's going to happen with Drummond at the Bulls when you've got Vucevic as well. So he's always in trade rumors at this stage. Bam and Jalen Johnson, they are safe. Rozier, he's tapered off since he's moved to the Heat, but he's still going to be a very solid player. This is what did you say it was? A 16-teamer. So this is where you may look at some depth as well. So Scoot, great stash, as you talked about. Wemby, elite guy. Zubac is not playing. That's an interesting one. I'm probably going to lean the latter. I'm probably going to go for Rozier, Drummond, Bam, and JJ. Just you know what you're going to get. There's no one injured, and perhaps there's a little bit more upside with Drummond if Vooch has moved and Drummond stays where he is.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that too. But yeah, like I said, even go to hashtag basketball monster, those kind of sites, they'll show you exactly what categories you'll be gaining and losing to. So you can assess your strengths and weaknesses and then kind of go from there.
Yeah, yeah. Puppy, I don't know if you had any other thoughts on that. It's just, yeah, it is a difficult one to analyze on the fly, but I'm just looking for safety there and a little bit of depth in a 16-teamer.
Yeah, I mean, actually, looking at the same side, although I love Wemby,
Mm.
you have to really consider the Scoot side of the things because we're in the crunch time now. If it's 9 cat, I think you only have what around 6 to 7 weeks more before your playoffs. So if that's the case, um, what's your team like? Do you value hard popcorn stats more? Because I'm pretty sure your field goal percentage will be shaky if you own Scoot. So if that's the case, like what Dimac mentioned, I'd rather be safe and get the likes of Bam, Jalen Johnson, and Rozier. Because if you're being lured by the upside of Scoot and Wemby, Jalen Johnson also has that upside. So gonna go with the latter part as well.
I like it. Another live question here. Uh, is Bagley a good handcuff for Gafford or just stream his spot?
Hmm.
I would say yes, just because in terms of front court depth, Wizards has like poop in their team. So that alone gives me some glimpse of life for Bagley. He already showed us what he can do when he's alone again without Dan Gafford. So if that's the case, he's already giving us at least rebounds and points. So why not stick to him until February 8th, right? So I think it's a good idea to handcuff him.
Yeah,
He could
Kayla.
even potentially be a stash too for Bagley because a lot of rumors are surrounding Gafford too. We don't know what's going to happen. You could, I'd say, stash him in points leagues. I think he's a little bit less value unless he is starting. We've all seen what he can do in that time.
Yeah, he has
Bilal
looked good
and
when he has. Yeah,
I was just gonna joke like Bilal and Bagley is gonna be the Kobe and Shaq of Wizards. Give them 2 weeks. Give
yeah,
them 2 weeks.
yeah. Wait for those memes to come out. That'll be interesting. But yeah, Bagley has looked good when he has started. Probably better suited to a points league situation than category leagues because we know that he can kill your free throws. He does struggle sometimes on the defensive end as well. So I think he's probably a better stash in a points situation. But I also, if you are struggling to get those W's in the lead up to the fantasy playoffs, perhaps streaming and trying to get those W's right now when everyone else is stashing, maybe you might get a couple of cheap victories in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, a lot of things to factor into that decision there. That is the end of our live mailbag show, guys. Do you have any final thoughts before we sign off for the day?
I think the main thing is just monitor all the rumors, trade situations, things like that. This week is going to be hectic, so it's really
Mhm.
important to stay on top and then make adjustments and stashes as needed.
Roy.
Yeah. For me, conserve at least an ad.
Mhm.
Don't get super excited and add everything before end of the week, because maybe something comes up end of the week. So I would say conserve that one, and then also kindly check your week 17. So it's an extended week, in inclusion of the All-Star break, right? So there's a lot of games there. Thing is, there's a lot of heavy days there, and there's a couple of games wherein you can actually stream players. So it's a matchup of what you have right now in your team. So with that said, try to plan it out, because it's something that could be crucial, especially that it's almost crunch time in terms of preparing for the playoffs. One outlier that I saw here is the Minnesota Timberwolves is going to play in all three of the light days of this week. Thing is, it's hard to stream a Minnesota Timberwolf. No? So what I'm looking at here is monitor Mike Conley, because Mike Conley might be dropped because he hasn't really playing very well. So if a certain team drops him, maybe it's a good
And he's
stream
missed
here.
with injury as well, which has
Exactly.
been,
And
yeah, concerning for an older guy.
and if it's injured, check out NAW, because he's also providing value, at least decent, as a streaming. So again, look at this specific week.
Fantastic, guys. I think just further to that, I guess, save your ads as well, but
Mm.
understand who, and we've spoken about this, Caleb, understand who your worst player is on your roster so that in the event of some news, and you would obviously keep up to date on Twitter following Kayla, Roy, and myself. So we'll get you the news. But if a trade happens or an injury happens, you need to understand who your best, but also your worst, obviously, your worst player is, so you can quickly make that move as well. So have a look at your roster, understand who you can quickly get rid of in the event that some breaking news does happen, and you can make hopefully a season-defining move. But that's it, guys. We've got a few other questions here, but I think we've got a hard stop here, Kayla. You've got some other commitments as well. Thank you so much, guys. Until next time,
Yep,
see
and
you.
we always answer questions on Twitter too.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. You know where to find us, guys. All right. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.